Welcome back. Welcome back to Living in Mexico. I'm Ana Maria Salazar. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us once again. We continue to broadcast every Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m. here through Grupo Imagen. I have an X account where we try to provide on a daily basis information about what's going on in Mexico, both in English and in Spanish. That account is at AM Salazar, and also you could check out at Mexico Daily. There's so much going on. It's hard to focus. I don't know where to focus on decisions being made in the United States or decisions being made here in Mexico. But let's for right now, let's look at one of the most important policy decisions, which eventually has to be translated into some kind of legislation. But one of the most important policy decisions that President Claudia Sheinbaum has to make is how to implement the energy reform. We almost have forgotten what is the energy reform? What does it say? Well, there's some information or some inkling as to what or possible ways she plans to implement this reform, providing priorities. Joining us to talk about this is Miriam Grunstein. You know her well. She's a well-known, very well-known expert on energy matters here in Mexico. Miriam, welcome to the show. Just as a reminder, tell us, what does the energy reform state? Welcome to Living in Mexico.
Hi, Ana Maria. So far, what we have that is the law is a constitutional reform. The constitutional reform states sets forth a number of things that are important, which means the renewed dominance of Pemex and CFE as state-owned companies, a renewed activist on the behalf of the state in the energy industry in the interest of energy sovereignty, whatever that means. The fusion of the regulatory agencies and their incorporation into the energy department, the Department of Energy, meaning SENER, Secretaría de Energía. So what they're trying to do by the secondary laws, which we don't know yet, is to juggle the monopolies, which are constitutionally not monopolies, but economically they are, with the market. They're trying to have something that may be in between what Peña Nieto did and what Andrés Manuel did. And it's going to be a very challenging squeeze to fit in monopolies and the prevalence of Pemex and CFE without hurting the market dynamic.
Can you just give us one example how this reform differs from what Peña Nieto did? I mean, we woke up one day and this is the big difference. What would be that big difference?
Basically, the market is for private companies is restricted to 46% of the generation delivered in a year.
That's interesting. So what does this mean for all those companies had come to Mexico throughout the last decade, thinking that they would invest in Mexico's energy sector?
Basically, you cannot have a market with those barriers. Because what if you have more potential than 46% altogether? It's going to be very hard to calculate. And what if Mexico needs more than the 54%? And what if CFE cannot reach the 54% for any reason? Will private parties be restricted to only generate 46% in a year? It's very complicated. I don't think the President Claudia Sheinbaum embraces those percentages because she's an energy expert. And she knows they're very hard to achieve in technical terms. I think those are politically set percentages.
Politically, that means
exactly.
Someone within the party, or
exactly.
I mean, what does that mean? You know what I mean?
Basically, they're trying to establish the the prevalence, the dominance of CFE, establishing these percentages that do not have any technical foundation.
Wow. So what does that mean for the price of production of energy? And this really becomes
We might
important.
have scarcity and it might go up.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes,
So,
because
so it may go up and there also could be scarcity?
well, no, it'll be it will go up because there will be scarcity.
Mm-hmm.
What she's trying to do, or what I don't know what if she is trying to do, what the party is trying to achieve in some form of political negotiation is to squeeze
Mm-hmm.
in the market together with the dominance of CFE. And
Mm-hmm.
CFE is a big entry barrier.
Mm-hmm.
So what you might have, what results is a very imperfect market because it has a huge entry barrier.
Mm-hmm.
Economically speaking, when you have a so-called monopoly within that market, is that you're going to have a very imperfect one.
Mm-hmm. So this, this week, as you know very well, there was some information was mentioned and then was leaked regarding how the president plans to implement this
How the
legislation.
president is planning to legislate.
Yeah, how she's planning to legislate this.
Legislate. The implementation would
Yeah.
follow the enacted legislation.
So, but it starts giving you at least a sense, whatever was leaked this week, which apparently
Yeah.
was a
Well, it wasn't,
PowerPoint.
there wasn't a leakage. There was a
Mhm.
PowerPoint presentation delivered on Thursday.
Okay.
On Thursday. Last
So,
Thursday, there was a PowerPoint presentation, and she says that we're going to have an industry. She didn't talk about hydrocarbons.
okay.
Hydrocarbons is a big enigma still. She
Hmm.
talked mainly about electricity because the most hardly hit industry during the last administration was the power industry, not as much the hydrocarbon industry, although
Hmm.
it was hit, but it wasn't basically bombarded as it happened
Hmm.
last administration. So basically, she's trying to, well, what the PowerPoint presentation says is that CFE will have 54% of the yearly generation,
Hmm.
that private parties will have 46 of the yearly generation, that you can have small scale private projects, that you can have independent power producers for CFE, and you can have a free market. So that's a crazy mix.
Hmm.
I
It
don't
is,
know how that
I
I
don't
don't
know
know.
how that
I
works.
don't see. I still don't see how that will fit. And
Hmm.
for that, so I can deliver a serious analysis. I would have to see at least the secondary legislation, but we don't have the secondary legislation. We have a PowerPoint
Hmm.
presentation.
What do you think her priorities are? I mean, I would assume that her priorities should be having enough electricity, and having cheap
I
access,
think she
and
I
also
think
encouraging investments
she needs
of.
investments, but she needs to have socially sustainable development.
Mhm.
I think that's what she's thinking of.
What can,
That if
but
it
what,
because investment as is can if it doesn't have a meaningful um effect on distribution, growth,
mhm.
development, and human rights is no interested. It's of no interest to her.
But there is pressure. I mean, the problem is with this reform, the priority and focus and the monopoly is given to Comisión Federal de
But
Electricidad, right?
no, it's
And
not really a monopoly.
mhm,
It's a dominant company
mhm. And how
because
is it not a monopoly? I mean, there is other investors.
because CFE has 54% of the yearly generation. It doesn't have 100%.
Okay, okay.
Okay? But
So,
that's hard to achieve because how do you quantify that?
Yeah.
How do you actually attract investment with those barriers? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
companies want to grow.
Mm-hmm.
Companies
And
want to invest in a growing economy, not in an economy where they will be settled down with a 46% of yearly generation.
mm-hmm. Which would that 46% would not be one company. Obviously, it would be
No,
divided
no, no. But the
into
problem with these entry barriers that only
the
certain companies adjust to those
mm-hmm.
barriers.
Mm-hmm.
And what is pro to happen is we will have an oligopoly of interested companies.
Mm-hmm. Joining us today here on Living in Mexico is Miriam Grunstein. You know her well. She's been joining us throughout the years. She's trying to help me understand what is or what appears to be Mexico's energy priorities based on the constitutional reform. We're talking about electricity, mainly electricity, right, Miriam?
Right, because the hydrocarbon scenario is still very vague.
It's very big, but there's a lot of concerns in terms of its viability. I mean, there continues to be a lot of reporting on how Pemex is not paying its bills and
Well, not
contracting
bills. It's
uh,
not playing, it's not paying its contractors and
contractors,
suppliers.
and which means that there's some of them are just slowly either going bankrupt
Yes,
or they're not providing services that Pemex
or
needs in
both.
order to continue, or both, to continue producing oil. What do you have any sense when the breaking point is going to be?
Well, the president said that within the next quarter, all the debt towards some contractors and provide and suppliers will be satisfied.
Mhm. So, and of course, we all are watching kind of this big picture. I mean, what is the future of Pemex as a company at a moment where I don't know if we can even talk about this. I mean, there was even conversations in the United States, and the president, now President Donald Trump, had been asked, well, are these tariffs going to apply also to oil
I think
that
that would be
Mexico
highly
ex
inconvenient to the United States.
well, I couldn't agree you more, but there's a lot of highly
Well,
inconvenient things.
the United States has a lot of oil,
Right, right.
so it could do without Mexican oil.
That's the bottom line. So,
That's the bottom line.
mm,
So if it imposes 25, and he's going to open new leases for EMP, for the exploration
mhm,
and production of oil and
right,
gas,
right.
which Biden had stopped.
Hmm.
And and basically the exports to the United States, although we were in the top five, are becoming minor.
Right. So, are they becoming minor because the United States no longer needs it, or is it because
It needs
Mexico?
us less.
Okay, they could use it, but it's not necessarily that
Well,
important.
the interesting thing about it is that it's also menacing it's one of its primary oil exporters, hydrocarbon exporters, which is Canada.
Right,
So
right.
basically they're at odds with all of its commercial partners.
Mm-hmm,
So I
mm-hmm,
don't, maybe he's got this grand idea of energy self-sufficiency, and we might and I don't know how sound that is.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So in this environment where there's a lot of pressures on the Mexican economy, on the Mexican energy sector, just help us understand and put into context what should be the priorities for President Claudia Sheinbaum. I mean, when do you think, for example, there will be legislation approved or at least voted, discussed and voted on and eventually implemented on, for example, the
I
energy on
think
the
that
electricity sector?
I think that it might be in the next couple of months.
Mm-hmm.
because what they will send to Congress will be sufficiently negotiated so it doesn't go back and forth between chambers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think, my feeling about this, my reflection about this is that she made a public statement regarding that the secondary legislation is coming
Mm-hmm.
to appease investment because the whole world is under turmoil
Mm-hmm.
with
Mm-hmm.
Trump.
Right.
So I think Trump becoming more of a menace basically put her against the wall to
Mm.
announce that the secondary legislation is coming. But I don't think that the legislation itself has been sufficiently negotiated for her to publish an official draft of the
So
secondary legislation.
when you say sufficiently negotiated, who does she need to negotiate with?
But well, Morena's broken up in groups.
Mm-hmm.
There's the Mexico City group, there's a Veracruz group, there's a Tabasco group, and they're animals towards one another.
Mm-hmm. So, but is this, I mean, help us then understand this division within Morena. Do we have any sense what each group wants and whether,
No,
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 what each group wants in some power.
that's interesting. So,
Yeah, in
ha-
some.
yeah. So,
I don't think there's policy objectives that are at odds, that
mm-hmm,
they're competing for policy objectives.
mm-hmm,
I think the policy objectives are within the presidential sphere.
mm-hmm. So
I think Veracruz and Tabasco want power, not
that's
policy.
interesting. And both are states that produce oil,
Well, no,
basically.
it's not because
Uh,
they're all producing states, it's because they want power.
wow.
Because I mean,
So,
it's not like their oil can actually
right.
be a negotiating chip.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Wow, this is really interesting. It's very confusing, but above all, it's very frustrating because like I said,
I know it is
when
very frustrating.
when you look at what's happening in the United States and the impact that of some of the decisions that President Donald Trump is imposing on Mexico and Canada and the rest of the world, you and I know it's going to be an inconvenient, like you said, for U.S. consumers.
It is going to
Uh,
be very inconvenient because Canada is a big supplier of hydrocarbons for the
mhm,
US. So what are either they have to have a very strong stock of hydrocarbons
mhm,
that completely liberates them from importing them, or they're going
mhm,
to have to go for the energy transition. But Donald Trump is screaming at the top of his lungs,
mhm,
drill, baby, drill, but you don't drill and you don't produce from one day to another. And shale is
mhm.
peaking
Well,
now,
that's interesting.
and shale is peaking. So fast production will be going down with a
Mhm.
peak of shale. But there is an important note. Chris Wright, the head of the energy department, is actually pretty reasonable.
Ah, so, but reasonable in the sense that he
That he doesn't
is
reject any type of energy.
right.
He he's not like the president in the sense that he abhors clean energy or
Solar, yeah.
renewable energy. He says that the
Mhm,
only thing that he denies to state is that solar and wind are clean.
mhm.
But
Well, that's
he believes that energy sources wherever from wherever they may come
mhm,
can fit into an energy basket.
mhm. Wow. Anything else you'd like to add? It's always great to have you on the show.
Thank you, Ana Maria. I love being in your show. Anything that it's a wait and see situation with the United States. We'll see what happens in the next coming days if tariffs are imposed or not.
Mhm.
And we'll
And
see
what
what
they
happens
look
to the
like.
exactly. We'll see what happens with the peso,
Yeah.
it might collapse.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I don't know. think I'm going to have to go back and start doing this show every day because it's every other hour we're getting
I know, I
different
know.
different conflicting news.
I really, let's say, sympathize with you because you're in a myriad topics. I'm an energy expert.
Mhm.
Otherwise, I'd be dying of ADHD.
Thank you so much, Miriam Grunstein. It's always great to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go to commercial break. I'm Ana Maria Salazar, and you're listening and watching Living in Mexico. Please don't go away. I'll be right back.